Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the stream. Hope everyone is doing well, or as well as can be. Sorry, my face is turned away. Busy looking at the other screen, doing the clickety-clack, clickety-clack. Good morning, Post. Hope you're doing well. Turn on monetization. Money be good. Close that. Open that. Add that. Alright. I think that is all the links sent that need to be sent. What else do we need? Yeah, these things happen. Starting to go a bit grey on the sides as well. Good thing I don't really care about it. It doesn't really bug me. Well, you know, going from one country to another, dragging your family along, stressful stuff. Being a YouTuber, watching those fluctuations in the algorithm, that'll make you grey. What am I doing? Okay, done there, done there, done there. Nope. Just organizing my screens a little. All right, I think we're good. We're good. We're good. Also, the light makes the grey stay out more. Or stick out more. Coffee. Coffee, coffee, coffee. As you can see, we've got a busy schedule, as usual. Nothing ever really changes. Today we'll be doing 3 chapters of NOP, 1 Re-Tifos, and tonight's Tifos. Fair enough, fair enough. I think just the stress of moving countries is enough to make anyone grey. Especially with dealing with government departments. In any country is horrible. Indeed, spam. Right, and then tomorrow we'll be doing a bunch of those. Probably one less. One more? Yeah. So somewhere around there. Today, tomorrow, Wednesday. So by Wednesday, we should be into next week. Thursday and Friday, we're catching up on Nature Predators and the Human from a Dungeon. Good morning, Banana. Hope you're doing well. Oh, afternoon. Just turned afternoon for me. Okay. Alrighty. Just chill out for a couple minutes, wait for people to stream in, pun fully intended, before we start. More and more people seem to be doing essays as titles. Which, I suppose, if it works, it works. You at least know what you're getting into. Oh yeah. Or longer. I mean, sometimes it can take up to a month. But we'll just keep hammering away. I mean, when we started the morning streams for me, it wasn't as many people. And then as people popped past and found out that it was a daily thing, they would make it part of their daily routine. So that takes a little bit of time. And yes, the essays are from Japan. That time I was reincarnated as a wheel in another world while the sun was rising and the moon was setting on the east side of the village, whilst the wind was blowing west. Something like that. Very, very specific titles. We're also streaming to Twitch now. Not Twitch, Twitter. Not exactly sure. Where I'm supposed to see where I'm streaming. Ah, there we go. I find myself. Good thing I didn't really lose myself. I'm gonna take a wild guess that this is not muted. No, not a problem. I keep that platform open for annoying YouTube if something goes wrong. Which is stupid. The fact that I have to go to another platform to annoy YouTube to help me. And that's ridiculous. But it is what it is. I mean, when the channel got demonetized, that's the only reason why it got remonetized is because I annoyed them for 16 hours. Non-stop. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Just streaming. Banana, just streaming. I didn't even know you could post videos onto Twitch. Twitter. The problem with most platforms is they don't really pay you. And I don't know how well the video part of Twitter does. X. We'll call it X. Good afternoon, James. Hope you're doing well. I'm not really a big social media person, so I don't really spend too much time on any platform. I mean, I got the Discord server that I mostly don't talk in, and then I got the YouTube channel. The only reason I have Twitter and Twitch was for the streams, and Twitter for getting hold of YouTube. It could be. I don't know whether there's an audience for it to post onto Twitter. I know Rumble doesn't really pay. Unless you're like a big name, you get absolutely jack shit. I think, because I had Rumble synchronizing to my YouTube, so whenever I uploaded up a YouTube video, Rumble would copy it. And I think out of 100,000 views, I got 10 cents. No? $2. $2 for 100,000 views. Which is in the range of, it's probably more profitable to do shorts. That's how bad that is. New property, we are moving in a month and a half to a new property. So, yeah. The owner of this property has decided to sell it, so we need to vacate. End of our contract is August. So we spent the last 2 weeks looking for a new place. We found one. Not as big as this place. A bit cheaper. About 25% cheaper. But about a third of the overall space. The house is about the same space, I think. But there's no garden in the new place. So the chickens are going to have to go to another place. Which is fine. Our neighbors have a bunch of chickens. So they'll be donated summarily to the chicken wranglers next door. So, by the end of the year, hopefully, I'll have my residency, because that's still being messed about. I have a meeting with the relevant government authorities in the middle of August. So, fun. My wife still hasn't got a booking for hers. So then we need to fight that. We're currently suing the government department to at least give us a date for my wife and everybody else. We will see how that goes. And I mean, suing is such a big word, but it's really, in this case, nothing special. Lawyer writes up a letter, sends it to the court reads it, and either rubber stamps it or rejects it. If they rubber stamp it, then it's binding, and the government department has to give us an appointment. There's no, like, lawyers, or court sessions and stuff like that. Almost a small claims court or civil thing. So, that's going to be fun. Because there's a lot of stuff you can't really do until you have a residency. So, like, I can't take out a loan. which I'd way prefer to take out a loan in Portugal than South Africa. Portugal's current loan rate or interest rate, is 3.6%, I think. Somewhere around there. And South Africa is probably 12 or 13. Okay, it's down a bit, 7.75. I remember when it was 15. That was brutal. Brutal. And in Portugal, they have 40-year loans for houses. So that's interesting. So once I get my residency, we can start building up some credit score. And then once the credit score's enough, we can get a loan and buy a property. And that's probably going to take a year or 3. Such is the nature of these things. But until we have that piece of paper, there is, however small of a chance, a risk that the government just turns around and says, fuck off. And we have to go back to South Africa. So, not a pleasant. Yeah. And it was bad. It was very, very bad. It was like that for a very long time. So when the 2008 credit crisis hit, I had bought my first property, which is a flat, like the month before. And we went from 10 to 17, I want to say. Let me just double check. It was something ridiculous. It jumped like 6 or 7% in 3 months. But yeah, that was a ridiculous time. ARM, I'm not sure what that means, James. Repo rate, probably. ARM. Adjustable rate. Something. Market. In South Africa, at that point, you couldn't really buy a fixed rate or get a fixed rate loan, especially for your first loan. Ah, okay. Yeah, I remember my repayments went from, I think it was 10,000 or 8,000 rand to like 15,000 rand in a year. It was very, very, very not fun. But that's the past. We've moved past that. We're on to future problems, which are now current problems. But such is the way of the world. I'm happy with a 40-year loan at a 3% interest rate. Hell, I'm happy at a 40-year loan with a 5% fixed interest rate, if that's an option. But I definitely want to be sure that they're not going to kick us out. Call me paranoid. It's only paranoia if you're wrong. It's forethought if you're right. Okay, I think we're going to move on to some narrating. Test. Cool. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 26. Memory transcription subject, Tassie, Bison Alien Liaison. Date, standardized human time, May 14th, 2160. Much like Dustin foretold in his introduction speech, it was odd how swiftly the madness of first contact became normalcy to the Bison public. The war raging on Avrana left Lastman untouched, even as thousands fell amid naval clashes and shoreline battles. Several cities had been devastated by collateral damage. Now diplomatic efforts were spread thin between trying to broker peace between nations and establishing channels with the aliens. The task of interacting with the various SC factions fell to Naltor, Zulk, and I, as we monitored the state of interstellar affairs alongside Dustin and Eliska. The sluggish process on their investigation of the ghost exterminators was excruciating, though it was understandable why it was a challenge. Even after calling in thousands of specialists to work the case from various angles, it was 100 years ago, and the humans had to search nearly 300 entities with multiple planets that were part of the Federation. It was a fish scale in an ocean. Dustin mentioned that the most promising angle was the forensic accountants called in. Someone couldn't build a spaceship or possibly multiple spaceships without significant financial backing and certain types of resources. Perhaps greasing some flippers just to get it off the ground, unauthorized. As humanity continued to work the mystery, the first contact team spread the word of the Starlight incident. The hope was that the Yodel would see that it was too late to avoid tampering with Avrana. The Desires tech level spoke for itself. Dustin was leading with the message that it was the SC's duty to repair the damage that had been done and provide answers due to the loss of life. I remembered how hostile the guard at the Technocracy's embassy had been, and wasn't convinced of my friend's claim that they thought that they were helping us. Regardless, I was keen on turning our most formidable opposition, especially after our present infighting gave them ammunition against us. If there was ever a time Bison should have been united, it was now, and yet we'd failed. After weeks of searching for a receptive audience on Learn, Dustin had gotten in the ear of the most human-friendly Yodel on their intelligence panel. This mystery marsupial had extended an invitation for the 3 Bisons from the Disclosure broadcast to join him, though he made it explicit that he wanted us to come alone, without Terran or Thafki backup. Nalton had been hesitant to visit Earth's upstart neighbor, but the first contact party was adamant that the Yodel wouldn't harm us. This might be our best chance to sow a rift in the Technocracy, rather than having the entire species wield unified opposition against us. I was willing to fly off a world that was vocally against our inclusion. I was willing to fly off to a world that was vocally against our inclusion, because I wanted these marsupials to be our friends, or at least tolerate us. We didn't need enemies. The little we'd been told about this politician painted a confusing picture. On one flipper, he was a carefree islander that enjoyed riding waves on pristine beaches. He'd share our love for the water, and he also still regularly took to the seas with a human friend. This Yodel had been a major part of environmental research to counteract the Federation's damage, expressing a great love for his planet and its fauna. His contributions to that project, an unmatched and unashamed representation of Rince's culture, were key to his were key to his popularity. On the other flipper, he was involved in the ship engineering because of his brilliant mind, yet had served a stint in the armed forces as a lowly comm technician. The war had driven him to be a rather paranoid, and his role in the intelligence panel was to provide oversight of their cyber warfare division. I hoped that we could appeal to his better nature. It was one thing to accept humans. It was one thing to accept humans of our friendship. Zulk had been grumbling the entire ride over, distracting me from the local scenery. I caught a glimpse of an immaculate harbor, replete with towering beachside hotels, medieval reenactments, and the largest boats I'd seen in my life. This species looks down on us and thinks that we don't belong. They're enemies of Avrana, plain and simple. This is martyrdom as much as what Dustin was trying to do. I parted my beak. Then why did you come, Zulk? It's not the same. The Yodel are unpleasant, but never threatened to kill us. They're rallying the anti-carnivals. Isn't that the same? For the record, I didn't want to come, but the Desir don't want to be excluded from whatever last one tried to get us into next. Nulia told us the Yodel were bullied, and now they're paranoid, Zulk. I figured that you hit it off with the Desir. I figured you'd hit it off with the Desir, but into your own delusions about outsiders. Nalto helped me out of the car as it rolled to a halt next to a quaint beach shack. Long oval-shaped boards were propped up against the walls, while there was pristine location. They didn't look like the well-to-do abode I'd expected of a top politician. They think Bisons never should have been contacted. That ship has sailed. I appreciate a good sailing metaphor. I appreciate a good sailing metaphor, a voice said from the porch. The Yodel government couldn't give a shit what you eat. We were the first to open diplomacy with the Arxol. We're using their bigotry for practical reasons, so that they'll vote with us. I swiveled around, eyeing the Yodel lurking in a rocking chair. You must be Onzo. And you're Dr. Tassie. Please, sit with me. It's a beautiful day. Oh, look. Hello, Bot. Goodbye, Bot. It's been fantastic. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. I ambled up the stairs to the porch, getting a look at the Yodel obscured by the corner. His fur was a deep red, aside from the silver silver creeping into his muzzle's coloration. Onzo's body was impressively toned for someone who was getting up in their age, a result of staying active and outdoorsy for decades. There was a shrewdness in his eyes as he studied me in his periphery, while pretending to fixate solely on the mossy green sands and crashing waves. There was a single rocking chair, as well as a bench swing meant to fit two. Thinking that it would be amusing to force Zulk and Nalta to sit side by side, I took the solo seat. The Selnor shot me a disdainful look, as I feigned ignorance. At least this will make Zulk and Nalta direct their dislike at each other, not the Yodel. Maybe Onzo will be able to give us an ally inside the technocracy government and argue to his peers for us. We should see why he asked us here. The Yodel politician took a sip of a dark brown drink, ears perked up. It's called cold brew. I'd offer you some, but apparently caffeine is literal poison to you. What I can offer you is the chance to admire the gorgeous view. I've spent my life in a small lighthouse town overlooking the ocean, then worked my way up the Coast Guard by not camping by the seas. Day and night, Zulk grunted. At home the water's orange and the sands are grey, but the beach is just a beach. But a beach is just a beach. It can't compare to actually being out on a boat. Simple shores to protect, that's all. You might be the most unimpressed person I've heard for their first visit to alien shores. I was under the belief that Bisons loved the water and everything about it. This beach isn't just a beach, though. It's where I sailed with my mother, back before the Federation set out on a mission to exterminate sailboats. Before they took everything, they made us happy. They made us yodel. I'm sorry, what? I demanded. I know the Federation exterminated predators, but... What the fuck do sailboats have to do with that? Nalto finished. Were they meat-eating sailboats? Onzo issued a bitter laugh. And to my knowledge, no. It was about taking what was ours and destroying it, replacing it with their better tech, since it's not like we had a prayer to Ralchi. Since it's not like we had a prayer to Ralchi of resisting. If we build nothing ourselves, we're dependent on them. The Imperial specs in the Federation wanted to control you, and they believed that they were superior to medieval primates like us. I want to tell you about our uplifting, something from a mere 46 years ago. I brought you here to explain why the Yodel are so closed off to the idea of doing that with you. Consider it a cautionary tale. The familiar sensation of my heart sinking played within my chest. You went from a medieval era straight to... Yes. You can imagine how that might have played out from your own history. You were advancing enough to grasp the idea of alien intelligence and common culture, whereas our astronomers barely grasped the has-beens enough to even toss out the idea. We had no comparable tech to the Feddies, aside from a few steam trains, simplistic vehicles. Kind of like my people acquiring a spaceship before inventing computers or space rockets of our own. The technology was like magic, Zog noted. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. The humans say something like that. So when the Federation showed up, promising that they could do things that were impossible, they were welcomed. Then they began their rampage of destruction, and we had to watch. Their exterminator started by burning the animals. Nalto's eyes reflected a troubled light. You said that that's what started with. You said that's what they started with. What else did they burn, Hanzo? They progressed to boats and many other things. Beck, the animal part alone has been something I've worked decades trying to salvage. There's a reason we've devoted an entire colony as animal reserve. The cultural losses are something you can't just bring back. They're torched. They torched anything outdated. Trains, scribe houses, fire brigades, and once they modernized our identity, you know what they did next? Tried to convince you of their predators are scary even though we have guns, lunacy. Onzo snickered. Yes, that did that too. They did do that. Started conditioning the next generation. But that's not the punchline. The worst part was that anyone who fought back or showed a spark of defiance, they'd pump you full of meds, and that turned you into a walking husk that you couldn't speak up. I'd know. I lived unable to even feel anger from their pills for years. You know what the anger toward them felt like? When it came off that? When I came off of that? Maddening! You had to want blood, Zulk hissed, a sadistic glint flashing in his eyes, suggesting his revenge fantasies against the aliens who hurt the Tessia. You wanted them to pay for what they did. Of course. We also have a mandate to ensure that other species, like yours, don't endure the horror that we did. Now, give me a second. Sorry about that. Just a weird clicking coming from somewhere. Sounded like an electronic interference that we did. we did. Don't enjoy the horror that we did. The Federation mocked us, spit in our faces, and demeaned us as stupid primitives, just because we evolved a little behind them. You don't want to be involved with the species that look down on you. The three of us were silent, absorbing Onzo's explanation. As disastrous as our first contact had been, I could understand how the Yodel had been 10 times worse. The Federation had come to belittle, convert, and control the natives. It would have been like if the aliens contacted us back during our colonial wars, when the Ritala were a fiefdom and their rivals, the Salma, were dominated by priests and royalty. We wouldn't have the means to retaliate. We wouldn't have the means to relate to aliens. If that had no prior concepts of their technology. If we had no prior contact. If we had no prior concepts of every technology they possessed. I saw that Dustin meant about the technocracy, believing that they were doing us a favor, though I thought that it was a misguided notion. The coalition was nothing like their predecessors, and was open about trying to be as responsible with their role since their initial address. The circumstances necessitated their invention. I think that's supposed to be intervention. The circumstances necessitated their intervention, even though Dustin admitted neither Evrana nor his side were ready. Evrana is in a precarious situation. Evrana is in a precarious position, where our entire biosphere could collapse, by our own doing, not by invading exterminators. I'm sorry that the Federation tried to brainwash you and destroy your home. I respect that you don't want us to go through that. With that said, I don't think the Coalition is giving us all their tech at once or erasing our achievements, I offered. It's different because they're giving us control and choices. They reached out as equals, not to assert their superiority. They also accelerated the timeline because of our imminent crisis. They also accelerated the timeline because of an imminent crisis. I know the Sapient Coalition is different. The fact is, there is an inherent power disparity between Bisons and the visitors. You might not tell them to feck off because you're afraid of what they could do. Onzo's ears pinned back against his head before he angled his snout towards Zog. And either way, the Tassir are a prime example of how outside influences can alter an entire culture and its direction. Their innovations have been shelved for whatever alien tech lay in that wreckage. Another example of the Federation's carelessness. What will be left of Bison creations when the SC gets done with you? Naltor bore a contemplative expression. There's a lot of benefits that can come from alien technology, lives that can be improved or saved. That's a choice the Yodel wanted to take from us. You look down on us by thinking that we're not ready to join a wider galaxy, because we evolved a little later. I have intended to help you ever since I learned about the Starlight incident. I'm giving you these facts as a warning to hold on to yourselves. You will have to live with the knowledge that you did not earn your place in the galaxy, or claw your way for every power porhold up to tech. Or claw your way up every porthole up the check tree. The world you inhabit will never again be truly yours. Why would you want to help us get into the Coalition? Suspicion gleamed in Zog's eyes, mistrustful of an outsider's aid. I don't see what you have to gain. The Yodel were happy to use my people's protest to squash our bid in this hatching stage. Why wouldn't you use the war now? Why wouldn't you use the war now? Because I want you to do something for me when you get entrenched. I want you to lobby for the Arxel's isolation to be lifted. What? What? The people eating carnivores that everyone lumps in with us, Naltor squawked. Heck no. Come on, Tassie, let's go. I fought down the sick taste in my beak, standing. I agree. We want nothing to do with them. I know what they have done to the Thafki, and I wouldn't betray Heliska like that. Just hear out their story. I don't know how much you've been told, but the Arksal didn't become monsters overnight. The Federation played a part in starving them, and collaborated with their sinister government to suit their narrative. You should hear it from their lips. I'll pass. I like my throat without cannibal bites. I like my throat without cannibal bite marks in it, Naltor deadpanned. As do I. It's not like they'd be in danger to you. We have an embassy on their planet, so I think we can speak to the fact that they're reforming. They have very few allies, so they'd be loyal unconditionally if you help them. When the Arksal heard that another obligate carnivore was discovered, they clamored to meet you. Their leader traveled for weeks to be here, and he's waiting inside. Please hear his story. The full context can't hurt you. There's an Arksal here? I gasped, scurrying over to Naltor for protection. Zolk rose from the bench, eager to distance himself from the Yodel. This is a trick. You brought us here under false pretenses, so that you can sabotage Tassie's efforts by saying that she met with an Arksal. I see what you're doing, making us look like we agree with the heinous act. If I wanted to do that, I could have just rushed Kaisel out here and Kaisel? If I wanted to do that, I could have just rushed Kaisel out here and photographed you with him. Bison meeting with the Arksal, done, Onzo grumbled. So this is what? Some long-term play for those cannibals to get loose? How do you think that we could even lobby for the Arksal to be freed? I asked. We aren't being welcomed into the coalition with open flippers. No, but I can change that. If you want my help, you need to at least have a sit-down with Kaisel. Let him explain the damage the Federation did, and how the Arksal Collective is working to undo Betterment's legacy. I won't force you to do anything more. Frustration was evident on Naltor's features, and I'm sure there was plastered across mine. We didn't have much of a choice, with the war blemishing our optics even further. A change of heart from an influential entity such as the Technocracy was the only way. This individual was high-ranking enough that he might be able to sway some votes. But I didn't like the idea of sitting across from a sadistic monster. I suppose the silver lining was that if the Yodel would buddy up to a species with as dark a past as the Arksal, they were definitely not anti-carnivores. All I could think about in my mind was how they'd see Heliska on her entire species as food, and how they dusted Nudia's homeworld in a brutal fashion. Zolk seemed to pick up on the resolve waning, though he fixed Onzo with a piercing stare. You didn't answer my question. What do you gain from this? Isn't it obvious? Right now, only diplomatic ships are allowed in and out of Riss's little bubble. The untapped trade market exclusively over the entire planet's manufacturing power and resources. We'll get in on the ground, pop some shipyards down there, set up Yodel bases, expand our influence and our strength. The Rinsian politician replied, seeming proud of himself. Was that really it? Well, it doesn't hurt that if you... Is that really it? Well, it doesn't hurt that it's a feck you to the Federation. There's still 100-odd species that were real buddy-buddy with them, and have continued existence under that moniker, even after all they did. Even after all that they did. The remnants will flop out if we release the Arksal before the Fossil and the Colchians. That'll be my decade. That'll make my decade. You had me at sending a feck you to the Federation. Same, Wonderbird. Naltor chipped in. Also same. I don't consider myself a hateful person, but I hate everything I hear about the Federation, I added. I cringe every time their name is brought up. I can't believe anyone would want their circus to keep going. Onzo chuckled. I like you Bisons, spiteful birds after my own heart. I'll go tell Kaisel to come out. Don't want to draw attention to the fact that he's here. Arksal Collective visitors aren't technically supposed to go outside embassies or diplomatic vessels. Then why? I asked. Less eyes on us, and a view to kill for. Your thoughts and beaches are just wrong to see her. Objectively wrong. Now, I'll be right back with a certain reptile. Stay put. The spry Yodel leapt to his feet, scampering into the house to retrieve his oxel. This oxel, leader, before we could change our minds. I still wasn't sure about agreeing to this, but as long as we weren't in imminent danger, I could play along for a single conversation. It was better to have those deranged carnivals viewing us as allies rather than enemies, if they were ever loosed on the galaxy again. Whatever the Federation had done to Riss, it didn't excuse the diabolical rampage that they'd gone on against herbivorous species. I could get why Dustin hadn't wanted to paint them in any sympathetic light, especially after being raised by Vendel and becoming close to Heliska and Nulia. There couldn't have been enough changes in the few decades that their very creature... There couldn't have been enough changes in the few decades when the very creature I'd be speaking to had likely partaken in the unspeakable cruelty. If these Oxal thought Bisons were anything like them, just because we were the second obligate carnivals to reach the stars, they would be in for a rude awakening. These weren't the kind of aliens I'd spent my life looking for, or that I would do anything to befriend. Or that I would do anything to befriend in the present. End of chapter. I've got 3 people watching on Twitter. Very, very interesting. Probably bots. I have no idea how the streaming on X, Twitch, Twitter, whatever works. But welcome, welcome. All viewers are appreciated. Okay, coffee down. Boomer juice a go. Oh, yes. We're on the white one today, the proper boomer juice. The original flavor. Okay, on to the next chapter. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Nature of Predators Book 2. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 27. Memory transcription subject, Tassie Bison Alien Liaison. Date standardized human time, May 14th, 2160. While Dustin's kind had hardly looked like ferocious predators, Kaisel had quite the intimidating stature. His teeth were visibly poking out of his elongated snout, serrated fangs that could eviscerate a bison in a flash of feathers if he so desired. The forward-facing eyes were narrowed to slits, which left him with a perpetual scowl on his face. The grey hide of scales seemed rougher than gravel and coated his entire body. Back to the powerful hind legs tailored to leaping at prey and a lashing tail with spiked protrusions. I can accept that blame. We should get a monster sponsorship. Boomer Juice is just Monster Energy drink. Sugar-free Monster Energy drink. To the powerful high... So I have no idea. Oh, sorry, misread that. Booper Juice. Well, if she boops the snoots, then yes. Back to the powerful hind legs tailored to leaping at prey, and he towered over even Naltor, who was from the largest bison subspecies, despite the fact that the reptile was hunched forward as he stalked ahead. All the while, claws like sabers protruded from... All the while, claws like sabers pointed at us from his raised forepaws. Had I not known the Oxal's gruesome history, I wouldn't have judged a fellow sapien for being fearsome. I might have appreciated Kaisel's unique adaptations and expressed my usual bundle of enthusiasm to learn about his culture. However, this was a species that spent centuries rounding up fellow sapiens. Starvation alone didn't excuse that. Whatever Onzo might think, humanity left risks and isolation without further remediation, for reasons I couldn't understand. I'd heard what Dustin said about seeing the best in others and trying to build something better from history's dark pages, but how could any of those things seem possible with these people-eaters? Why would bisons want these creatures out of the quarantine any more than the rest of the galaxy? Onzo is much too clever to assume that we can be played like ice chimes. He must know there's nothing they can say that'll change my perspective, and that we want nothing to do with the Oxal. The Federation involvement mentioned by the Yodel didn't make sense either, with how staunch their anti-predator stance was, and them being at the root of the Oxal's supposedly forced diet. Why would the Federation want their citizens to be turned into livestock? Onzo claimed that it suited their narrative, but I couldn't even begin to understand the implications of that. So many alien regimes had been beyond insane. They cared so little for life and took their villainy... That's not all, folks. They cared so little for life and took their villainy to the extreme. Kaisel was from one of those two factions behind the terrible things I'd learned in the stars, and I found myself itching to rip his excuses to shreds. While we needed aid and wanted to send a message to the Fed remnant faction, it was beneath us to hold a conversation with a monster. It's excellent to meet you, fellow hunter. The humans are wily, but there are still leaf lickers. Kaisel's voice was a low rumble, with hissing sounds that accompanied certain consonants. You must have heard awful things about us. I know that they have a tendency to mention us only as the ones who had sapient cattle and no empathy. Nalto cast a brazen stare back at the Oxal, rooted in front of me as a shield. What else is there to remember? What else is there to mention if that's the truth? We could always wrap this up early. I don't care for long conversations, so I won't dawdle. We're a solitary species. That doesn't always mean a lack of empathy. It so happens that our government culled anyone with effective emotions as defective. That's how you get a race of sociopaths, bisons. You either are one, or you play along as one to survive, or you die. The Oxal Dominion celebrated cruelty, and its leaders wanted to remain a war power. You're telling me that your government... You're telling me that your government systematically murdered anyone who exhibited empathy. Any sane species would overthrow such a madman long before you got to that point, I spat. There was an entire war being fought over Betterment's ideas when the Federation arrived, bearing gifts, until they dosed us with meat allergy serum. Do you know what a horrific death that is? When you can't eat... Yes, it always fights back, but we will win in the end. That is, when you can't eat the only food your species can consume, there's a reason we hate them. It's the same reason authoritarians took control, even seized it as an opportunity. I believe that Seer may have a better idea about how alien attacks change your society. Zulk raised a flipper in protest. Don't compare yourselves to us. We didn't start murdering our own, or eating people. Naltor can call us savages all he likes, but we did nothing but try to protect our homes and match their strength. Wrong, Naltor countered. I'll explain to you fully how fecked the Desir are later. You're on your own brand of fecked, but you aren't like these aliens. I'd love to hear how this allergy serum turned you from happy carnivores to people eaters. It doesn't explain how... It doesn't explain how authoritarians consolidated power. My confidence grew the more I heard, compelling me to provide a rebuttal to the Oxal's defense. They can decide to use it to their advantage all they want, but that doesn't explain why a whole fecking populace would just go along with sapient cattle farms. That didn't make it okay with you. That didn't make you okay with it. It's more that Batman pushed us to have no alternative. In the same breath as the killer serum, they tried to wipe out the enemy's nation's cattle. Between the two attacks, it could have starved them out, Kaisel growled. That bioweapon took out theirs too, and that opened the door to a desperate solution, which only they'd be willing to carry out. They blamed the Federation for the cattle virus, bringing a level of hatred that left us to ensure that they reaped their consequences. You talk so who's talking? You talk so callously about what you've done. What kind of species would even think about eating food that talks, capturing them from their homes and shoving them in farms? When you're hungry enough, true thinking stops. Late-stage starvation makes anything food. That's why they kept us that way. It was only with both the Federation and the Dominion gone that we could change. It's difficult to beat a system. It's near impossible to beat one that you were born into, Onzo spoke up, from where he'd been quietly observing this. From where he'd been quietly observing us. The Arxor became a shell of their former selves, because they made all the worst choices. Yet they did a lot of good in the war that gets overlooked. Like species like the Dirtian and the Doser exist because the rebels stepped in alongside our efforts. They proved that they could work with Yodel ships. When they deprived of food, they become animals without higher thought. You heard that admission, and you want them serving alongside us, I demanded. Tassie, those are extreme cases of starvation. Anyone can be driven mad without their basic needs met. I'll let you in on a secret. However intelligent we might become, we're all animals. Predator, prey, two sides of the same coin. Sapiens can be better than that. We always have control and agency. Kaisel smacked his tail on the porch. Whatever you might think of us, the Oxal saved Earth. If you like the humans, you can thank us for their planet not being a ball of rubble. Wait, what? The humans staved off total extinction with help from the loathed carnivores. Why would the Dominion protect Earth? And how did their allies not turn on them? When we get slammed for being linked to the When we get slammed for being linked to the Greys in any capacity. While I was still trying to be resistant to any sympathetic thoughts, out of basic courtesy for Aliska, I was shaken that Dustin left out something so important. I was shaken that Dustin left out some important context about the Oxal. I'd never been through much attack. It had never been brought to my attention that the Federation, who was supposedly fighting a war against them, were teaming up with them the whole time, and misleading the public. The fact of the Oxor being starved systematically had also been omitted, making it sound as if they were looking for sapient lunches as soon as they made first contact. Humanity was also happy to construct a tale like Earth's survival was a miracle, rather than owing their existence to a nightmarish carnivals. I couldn't imagine what state the galaxy would be in without the Terrans, so I could feel the little gratitude of Kaisel's kind saved him. Thuston failed to mention that, Naltor sighed. The Oxor's leaders fled. The Oxor's leaders' nostrils fled with annoyance. The humans don't like to admit what they needed help from their The humans don't like to admit that they needed help from the unsavory fleet such as ours. But it is true. We have always been willing to come to the defense of non-herbivores, something that would make us a good ally to you, from a pragmatic standpoint. We wouldn't turn away aid from any source if Alsh is attacked by exterminator loons again, Zulk responded. I'm not ready to bring trouble down on our heads by signing a pact with the galaxy's most hated federation. I am not ready to bring down on our heads. I am not ready to bring trouble down on our heads by signing a pact with the galaxy's most hated faction. We mistrust outsiders to begin with, so I am not sure how we would trust anyone without your So I am not sure how we would trust anyone with your checkered past. Any historian worth their meat salts will also tell you how important the rebellion fighting back against the betterment regime is. There are people who hated what we'd become, and I'm proud to say that I joined their cause as soon as possible. A fight for peace and a better legacy that you will find that you will not find so repugnant. The collective strives to end a culture of cruelty and bring satiety to all. Part of our ideal future is making alien friends. You want to be our friends just because we're obligate carnivores? I accused. That is the primary reason, Tassie. There has never been another species like us. Who would we have more in common with than a biological level? Who would we have more in common with on a biological level? Whose world and culture would perhaps find a place in? Whose world and culture could we perhaps find a place in? Besides, you'll be an eye-opening test of the SC. If they cannot accept you, then I know they'll never accept us. That's part of why I want to help the Bisons. Onzo pinned his ears back, bushy tail stiffening as he spoke. I'm not convinced that the Coalition members have shaken off their Federation roots altogether. There's many that just make a mental exception for humans. I think the technocracy would be foolish to make an alliance of convenience with anti-carnivores. I think the technocracy would be foolish to make an alliance with of convenience with the anti-carnivores. My cooperation with you should be proof for the Bisons that I care much more for fighting spirit than diet. The Yodel are nothing. The Yodel are anything but weak, so we've gotten along well. You didn't care that the wider SC won't even speak to us. The wider SC called us primitives and looked down on us. They laughed as the Federation wrecked our home. I wonder why we don't give a feck about what they think. I wonder why we don't give a feck what they think. Naltor gave me a look. This is the same SC Tassie wants to join, for some reason. Why do we care what they think of our war? Because we need them. Humanity's trying to pull the galaxy forward, as impossible as that appears, I retorted. A hiss emanated from Kaisel's chest. We've done everything they asked of us, but my people are starting to feel abandoned. We won't stay in isolation much longer. If they want us to better ourselves, then they need to treat us like allies, and let us join their team, without acting ashamed of us. We want We don't want the future to pass us by.
It would be an excellent way to leave the predator-prey schism behind once and for all, if the Sapient Coalition could see the Oxel aren't monsters. That rips the Foundation out of the so-called proof for the Federation's dogma, Bonzo declared. I thought a chat with Kaiser might rip away your misconceptions. Bisoms have a chance to be the catalyst for true unity, leaving the war and its divisions behind.
That's a nice ideal, but you can't be sure it'll be that simple.
Zolk tilted his head, a skeptical glimmer in his eyes.
Let's say that we got into the coalition. What happens if they don't listen to us? We're our newest and distinct lack of credibility. With our newness and distinct lack of credibility.
I've taken the liberty of strengthening our military. I've taken the liberty of strengthening our military to a respectable fleet size once more. We don't want trouble, but let's just say that we're done with We don't want trouble.
I've taken the liberty of strengthening our military to a respectable fleet size once more. We don't want trouble, but let's just say that we're done with quarantine. It would be better for everyone if that was us friends. Let us go about our business with those who are ready to move on.
I shifted on my feet. It's only been a few decades since the last war, and you're willing to go back to battle?
We will not fire the first shots. That's not my wish. I'd rather you convince the SC that we deserve a second chance. It would be worth your while, and you'd have an ally you don't have to worry about scaring. I'll accept gradual concessions from the Leaf Flickers, but we've been left out of everything far too long.
Define worth our while. Will you give us military technology? Naltor squawked. That's what we need, Kaisel, to increase Abrana's standing so that we aren't entirely at their mercy.
The Collective would happily provide ships and weapon blueprints in return. As Onzo could tell you, that's the only way they won't view you as primitives. Strength. Your own ships will mean that they can't dismiss you or bar you from the stars on a whim.
Interest shone in Zolk's eyes.
Having your own starship fleet would be a game-changer. If those Ghost Exterminators return, we can rise to meet them. However, there's no way to know you're good for it before we uphold our part of the deal. We'll earn your trust, Azir. We're not the self-serving species we were 20 years ago. We can work with others as a civilized force. Give us a chance to prove it. Let us bury what the Dominion did and make a new name for ourselves.
Do they even deserve a second chance after what they've done? Whatever Kaisel says about fighting back, it was their whole society. They're willing to get in the way by force, so they can't have changed that much. We'll consider it, I said. I can't pretend your history didn't exist, but I know I don't want any more death and war. I want what's best for Evrana, and the SC won't give our problems their full attention if they're all fighting you.
That's true. They did the Oxor dirty.
The Yodel politician flicked his hair in agreement. That's all we ask. In any case, I have a plan to get you a trial role on the SC. I'll tell them if there's any way to show you're divided. I'll tell them if there's any way to show you're divided, it'll be by giving you a single vote amid a war. It's up to you to prove them wrong. So I even have a chance to get you a permanent spot. We just need to get in the door. We just need to get in the door, despite the war. Every faction has extended a friendly flipper towards the aliens. Even his, Naltor gestured to Zolk, who scoffed in response. We know we have to get this right, even as we're fighting amongst ourselves. The Tizia sighed. I wouldn't put up with a cloak of beaks like you if I didn't. Thanks. Thank you, Hansa, I intercepted. Thank you, Hansa, I interceded. We appreciate the introductions and the aid. I think it's best that we get going before someone does see us all colluding. We know how this would go over. Kaiser snorted. How dare anyone talk to the Oxel? That attitude is exactly what needs to change with the Coalition, and why we don't trust them to look out for us. Carnival still can't get a fair shake, even with our dark history. I'll certainly be watching your experience with interest. We're going to make this work for us. I won't give up on being part of the galactic community and seeing Bison's welcome as equals. Before you do anything rash, let's see whether they can come around to us.
I can be patient. I can be a little patient. Just don't take too long. Goodbye, Tassie and friends.
Still huddled behind Neltel, I turned towards the vehicle we'd arrived in, eager to get away from the Oxor leader. I only breathed a sigh of relief once the car was speeding away from Anza's home. The politician must believe the reptilians had changed, if he was letting one stay in his dwelling without any backup. I wasn't sure what my companions made of Kaisel, but I was convicted of every explanation he offered. Aligning ourselves with them didn't seem like a prudent move. It'd validate prejudices about us accepting their crimes. Then again, the alternative was a fight that could pick up where the unthinkable centuries-long war had left off. That would strengthen the grudges against carnivals that Bisons would have to face. The dilemma certainly wasn't what I expected when I got the invite to Lian, but what mattered was that the Yodel had a plan that he thought would get us a brief stint with the Sapien Coalition. That brought me a giddy rush, since I'd thought our chances might be dead in the waters with the war raging. Once I got myself into the forum, I was going to make every connection I could to ensure that we stayed there for good. End of chapter.
Alright, I'm going to step away for a moment. I'll be right back. Back. Hello? Hello. We're back. We're back.
Augmented reality target.
Good afternoon, Graldic. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Yarg! More treasure for the treasure chest. Yarg! There we go. And that would definitely be interesting, Graldic. Definitely something.
Almost every shot into the center ring with a hexagonal target. Quana proved able to handle a weapon, firing almost every shot into the center ring of a hexagonal target, which was shaped a bit like crib scales. General Radai watched with interest, correcting the techniques of any humans who couldn't take the hints from their helmet. Where the Reskets truly went ballistic was the trigger discipline, and keeping weapons pointed down range. One Terran turned a gun towards Radai as he addressed her. In a matter of seconds, the towering pink bird twisted her wrist to disarm her and jabbed a gun against the side of it. And jabbed the gun against the side of her helmet to make a point. He'd shrieked that she was doing the same thing to her squad by pointing a loaded weapon at friendlies. It appeared that our headgear had built-in ear protection, judging by how it muted bullet noises. Quana suggested that it was to protect against sonic weapons or long-term ear damage. Still, the Resket's voice was as loud as a tornado siren, so I imagined that the new enlistee wasn't enjoying the audio assault. Aliens being aggressive and getting in our faces was novel. Radai's only comment was that I was too slow reloading my weapon. That's not the worst critique I could have received, though. Shuri certainly makes it look much simpler. The Resket ordered us to return our firearms to the artillery cart, remarking that it was time to progress to the grenade range. We needed to become familiar with a wide array of weapons, especially close-quarters ones, since Reskets were most likely sidelined for those deployments. Their 9-foot-tall stature didn't make them good fit for tight spaces, so other races needed to be qualified to function in those scenarios alone. From what I'd seen in the Federation, it was surprising that the Consortium crafted handheld explosives in an incendiary device that could riddle the enemy with shrapnel and supposedly a vicious, human-only invention. I was intrigued to know that the Krev had added some crazy tech to our version. Maybe we could explode them with our minds.
All right, listen up. This is your crash course on how to utilize grenades in the field or in tight hallway. Your helmets come equipped with an anti-flashbang tech, so count your fucking blessings there.
Radai barked.
Back when I was trained, we had to get flashbanged to see what it was like and keep fighting. You have a much easier task. We'll still be using these non-lethal weapons for the purpose of our training today. Understood?
Yes, sir, came the confident response.
If you are fighting around a corner, you want to roll it down the hallway with gusto. Otherwise, for further distances, we have grenade launchers right here to guide them.
They probably developed anti-flashbang tech for your helmets because of us, Quana whispered to me. We'd throw them when ambush. We'd throw them when we ambushed them in the snow. They were really blind. They were really blind between the envirosuits and constant blizzards. Our white fur already might have been invisible. I shrugged. You talk like you were there. My relatives were. They passed on their stories to me. How the fact did they get captured? Redeye scowled. Taylor Trench, I thought you came here to join the military. It seems that you're more interested in trading gossip. Oh, now you're in trouble, Cherie snickered. I straightened, embarrassed to be called out. No, sir, I didn't mean to be disruptive. Well, too fucking late for that. Redeye stalked closer, angling his beak towards the top of my skull. Tell us what you were talking about. We're all waiting. It really wasn't anything important. I can't tell him that we were reminiscing on the Resket's great embarrassment. It'll be bad news for Quana. Just about how we don't have anti-flashbang helmets on Earth, and that I'm glad that we, don't have to take one to the face like you did, sir. I should fucking make you get onto the ground and take one. Maybe Mafani was right about you not needing a helmet. Sir, this will not happen again. I do not mean to disrupt. I do not mean to disrespect you. I'm sure you didn't. Did you hear any of what I said? Roll grenades in hallways, grenade launchers in open spots, and, yeah. Good! Now you've just volunteered yourself to go first. I didn't think that you heard any of my instructions on how to load the weapon, so I figured it the fuck out on your own. So figure it out, fuck out on your own. Stand at the red line and put the fucking grenade on the nearest burlap sack over the wall. Go on. Redeye maneuvered behind me, shoving me forwards before I could respond to his instructions. I swallowed. As I picked up the grenade launcher that I had no idea how to use, my fingers curled around a flashbang shell. I stared downrange at the puffy sacks Redeye had mentioned. My feed displayed his distance and target 20 meters away. My feed displayed. What the fuck was that? My feed displayed. Jesus, what the heck's causing this? My feed displayed. What the hell? Greetings, they. My feed displayed. My feed displayed the distance to the target as 20 meters away. There were stacks much further downrange that would actually require the launcher, though the Rescue General was easing us into the training with a closer target. Was this a test to see if I'd fall back into using tools as a clutch? The avian looked amused as I reared back, like he thought I was throwing in the towel. But his expression morphed into shock as the grenade left my grip. I watched my throw arc through the air, landing directly atop the aforementioned target. Redeye's beak was parted with disbelief. His neck bent forward like he wanted to be sure that he'd seen the past scene correctly. I was confused about what was so remarkable. Would he view this as further defiance, since he'd clearly intended for me to use the launcher? I thought I was taking the initiative, using a more efficient delivery method. My head swiveled back to Quana with nervousness. The Jasnip's binocular eyes had gone wide with awe. Every alien in our training group appeared stunned by my most recent action. Taylor, was that a dumb luck, or did you really throw that with as much power and precision first try too? Redeye asked. I pressed a palm to the back of my helmet. It wasn't that impressive. The throw wasn't, that far, sir. We saw your sports. We saw your sports like baseball and whatnot, but frankly, we lumped that in with your other staged entertainment, like your superhero movies. We thought it would be physically impossible for any species to naturally be... We thought
We thought that it was physically impossible for any species to be natural at projectile physics. I don't know what to say, other than please, don't start calling us scary predators or some such shit. French, that's the first time today that I've been impressed with humans. Peckett, you're all going to be grenadiers, Radai chuckled. I need to notify the other traders, and rework the grenade regimen to fit your natural abilities. We'll put your crowds together and think of ways to use this. Unit, you are dismissed.
Charisse and Quana walked up to meet me as I turned away from Rescott. He dropped his ire towards my chattiness after my throwing demonstration. Radai didn't take any shit, but he seemed fair enough. The way he cemented his authority was forceful and sometimes violent, but not mean-spirited. He hadn't seemed to target my Jaslip friend, unlike our previous trainer. With Mufani ordered to stay away from us, I hoped that was the last we'd seen of the racist avian. I slunk off to rejoin my group, but stiffened as the general piped up. Taylor Trench and friends, stay behind 1 moment, Radai called after us. Feck, is he going to put me on latrine duty? I deserve it, but damn it, I don't want to be cleaning up alien crap. I turned on my heel, removing my helmet so that he could see my regretful expression.
I apologize again for the disruption, General Radai.
Sir, it was my fault, Quana chimed in, surprising me. I would have never snitched on her involvement, especially since Rescott's might be looking for any excuse to single out a Jaslip. I made a comment to him about why I made a comment to him about why I thought anti-flashbangs might have been invented.
I am aware, but thank you for doing the honorable thing, Quana, Radai sighed. I let it slide only because Mufani had been antagonizing you. I prefer we didn't rehash a 30-year-old skirmish, especially when there's talk about going after our real enemy.
After what they did to Earth, I'd love for us to take After what they did to Earth, I'd love for us to take those feckers down. I'm here to fight. I'm here to do right by the humans. In my opinion, it's time we stopped hiding and stopped accepting the good people have to die to them. Charisse cracked her knuckles. Much like Quana, I loved chance to make the Kurokatl and all the pals pay. How well your army functions compared to theirs night and day. And how
aliens learned that humans can throw stuff.
Charisse cracked her knuckles. Much like Quana, I'd love a chance to make the Kurokatl and all their pals pay. How well your army functions compared to theirs night and day. And in your tech, and I think we could take him.
I do too. For what it's worth, your information shines a new light on the threat. I do too. Your information shines a new light on the threat. It could be the catalyst we need to prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we can win. That the shame of our cowardice is no longer a necessity, the Rescott commented. The Rescott commented. Going after the feds? Feck yeah, I'm totally in. I cheered. Oops, too much. Sorry again, sir. Radai narrowed his large eyes. You need to learn discipline, Trench. You do not come from a military background, but your inattention could cost lives in the field. That said, I didn't keep you to punish you for your outburst, though if you don't pull it together, you'll wish Mufani was still here. Sir, with all due respect, I don't think I'll ever wish Mufani was still here. I'm all ears for why you wished to speak with me. Very well. It's about your friend from the Avar visit, Gress, the famous negotiator. The Ulchid teaching his comms course messaged me that he never showed up to her class. It's unlike him or his reputation. I was wondering if you had a better idea of where he was. That crib, Quana pinned her ears back with distaste. Her hackle fur was up. We don't know, and we don't care, sir. We saw him back at the Hab module. He was on the base at some point, Charisse volunteered. Perhaps it would be worth looking there.
Redeye shot a glare at Koala before turning to my human ally. Do that. Assuming Gress is all right, tell him to report to his superiors for disciplinary action. I don't want to deal, I began. Charisse stepped on my foot, breaking my sentence. Yes, sir, we're on it. Good. Whatever is going on between you, your personal issues will not take precedence over your duty again. Dismissed, the Resket hissed. I stormed off, stomping through the grass as soon as we ducked out of the Redeye's line of sight. After how deeply Gress had hurt me, Charisse had no right to volunteer me to search for him. I wouldn't interact with the creep who'd strung me along as my exchange partner, lying about his kids... Lying about kids dying and genocide to save face. Koala bared her fangs at the female human, a clear indication that she had also no intention of tracking down the kid killer. The Jaslip was a better friend than Gress had ever been, just by admitting her wrongdoing to Redeye, instead of letting me take the fall. She didn't hide from her past or her actions. If Gress thinks I'd choose him in an ultimatum between him and Koala, he's nuts. I want nothing to do with that lying bastard. Charisse crossed her arms, blocking my path. Taylor, he was your friend for months. For your own sake, if only for closure, you owe it to yourself to find and confront him. I'm not doubting Koala's story, but I never saw Gress do someone... But I never saw Gress as someone so impervious to life.
Maybe he feels bad about it now. Maybe his superiors pressured him to save the delegates. Doesn't matter, I sulked. I don't want to hear excuses, not now, when you didn't have the balls to be honest with me. After all that talk about me leveling with him.
You should never cut someone off without hearing what they have to say for themselves. You two talked daily for months. That has to count for something. I've never seen Gress act like that before.
Neither had I. I thought he was my friend. Now good people like Koala will associate with me with that monster.
I don't.
Now good people like Koala will associate me with that monster.
I don't, the Jaslip offered. Not after you helped me with Mafani. It might be cathartic for you to confront Gress and call him out for the monster he is. I guess you should try find him, to cut those ties once and for all, though that Redeye won't ask you about him in the future.
Oh, excuse me. That monster is fighting back. It would be nice if I wasn't forced to interact with him anymore. Someone has to tell him, in no uncertain terms, that he's not my bunkmate anymore. I want answers. To call him on the carpet. How could he be such a rotten liar?
Charisse patted me on the back. Go on then. Try looking near the hab module. He has that odor. He has that ober shrieking right. He has that ober shrieking ringtone for you. It'd be hard to miss it if you tried to call him.
I guess I'm just an oversized ober to him. Hey, Pat. I'll show him when I think of his false friendship. I'll show him.
I shoved my helmet into Koala's threefold tail, and the Jaslip heaved a sigh, reluctant agreement to return it to my bunk. With righteous fury causing my fists to clench, I tore off down the pathway. I almost barreled over one human soldier, who shot me a nasty look. My glower must have caused him to back down, since I felt positively deranged on the hunt for Gress. There was a single person that I wanted to direct my wounded feelings towards. Had he even cared about how I feel at all? Had he even cared about how I would feel at all? Why had he zeroed in on me out of every human on Tellus? Because I was in a vulnerable state? Perhaps. Perhaps this was all long-term revenge for clubbing him over the skull.
To think I liked him and bought that young, easily flustered, kind-hearted dad act. To think I believed that he had a conscience, or could be trusted to watch out for humanity's best interests.
I jabbed his name into my call history as my pupils jerked around the vacant space behind the hab module. Sure enough, I heard ober shrieks in the distance. by a thick set of hedges off the beaten path. Gress didn't pick up my call, but I wasn't letting that jackass send me to voicemail. My God, I was going to say my piece to him. I vaulted over the bushes with triumphant wrath and faltered in my anger as I heard the softer sounds. The Kriv was curled up into a ball, looking like a green spherical pine cone. I could hear snot bubbling in his nostrils, along with pathetic sobs emanating from his chest. In spite of myself, I felt sorry for him. It was difficult to unload my anger on someone who looked so broken. "Gress," I whispered, intentionally cursing myself my sympathy. "It's me, Taylor. Come out of the ball, please. We need to talk." The Kriv uncoiled slightly, pointing a disoriented gaze at me. "I'm sorry, Taylor. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. I saw her. I saw you with her, and she wouldn't stop accusing me of all those awful things." "Psh, are you trying to tell me that you didn't let children die? Because I feel that's something I should have known." "How the fuck do you think I would do that? How the fuck can you think that I would do that? How?" I flinched away from his raised voice. "Kwana said it like it's common knowledge. You said nothing to defend yourself." Kwana said it like it's common knowledge. You said nothing to defend yourself." "Because I can't. I can't, Taylor. I can't. I've been trying to put my life together, but that day follows me everywhere. You know what it's like to see something whenever you close your eyes. I watch you flinch each time you see a miner's helmet or hear anything that sounds like drilling." I snapped my head back even further, gritting my teeth. "Don't you fucking mention that accident. Use that against me. I'm trying to make up for it." "And I'm trying to make up for the nightmare that never ends. And I'm trying to wake up from the nightmare that never ends. I'm just in a good enough spot mentally to be able to tell you that those kids dying wasn't my fault. Do you want to know what happened? Or have you already condemned me like I meant nothing to you?" "You were the closest person in my life since the day I took off the mask. You were the closest person in my life since the day I took off that mask. But you let me down. I don't know how... I know how many stragglers stayed in Esco. You didn't tell me," the Crab sighed. "You're right. It was awful, and, I never said it was okay. I really didn't make a difference whether it was 100 Jaslips or a billion. Murder is murder. They have a point, regardless of whether it had to be done." "You downplayed it, Gress. Don't fucking lie." "I didn't want you to be afraid of us. After what happened to Earth, you're completely right. My word choice misled you on the scale, and I can't imagine how you feel when you have trust issues with aliens to start with. I'm sorry." "What do you expect me to do with the months-late apology? You had every opportunity to come clear, or open up at all about yourself." "Let me tell you now what really fucking happened. You can choose to forgive me or not, but I don't want you thinking I'd sacrifice children." "Whatever. I can't wait to hear this festival of excuses." The Crab drew a shuddering breath, trying to give the impression that he was struggling to continue. My impatience simmered, though I held back any scathing remarks. This attempt to manipulate me through empathy wasn't going to work. There was no way that Gress and Kwana could have such desperate stories about the same event. The Jaslip had no reason to lie, while this guy had every reason to lie. Tears streamed down his scaly face as he stared into the binocular eyes that I'd hidden from him for years. I wished I had my helmet to obscure them again, so he couldn't see that I still felt for him. "Look, Taylor, they nabbed 5 important individuals at a convention center, holed up there for days," Gress snuffled. "I knew there were kids in there, but I thought that was the parents bringing them along as some fucked up way to drag them into the hostage mess. But I thought that was the parents bringing them along as some fucked up way to drag them into the hostage mess. Those Esco fighters, radicals. That's how they'd raise their children." I scowled at him. "How is that the kids' fault? Let me finish. It's sad, but it's not their fault. At any rate, listen. We thought that they were roped in, because why the feck would you think that parents would blow their own children's brains out? I didn't know what they were intending, and that's how they set us up. The Ivorian police force walked right into their propaganda victory. The Jaslips told us exactly who they had held hostage, and days later, they called me to request 5 hostages to leave by name. You know what I said?
No, this isn't going anywhere. How could Quana blame you for what was done so blatantly? And I should believe you didn't know.
Because the Jaslips filmed it all, and lined the kids up to look like a call. And lined the kids up to look like the call to me was a video streamed. It wasn't. I couldn't see that they had their own offspring mewling, crying through a gag, and with guns pointed at them. When they asked for 5 hostages to let go, I was exhausted. I didn't know what to think. If it was a test or something, but I didn't want to give them time to change their mind. I asked for all 5, thanked them for doing the right thing. Out come the aristocrats. We saved the day. Time to go on. We saved the day. Time to go in and round up the criminals, right?
I was quiet for a long moment. You're saying they staged it to look like you chose to let the kids die?
It makes for good propaganda. They wanted them and their children to be martyrs. And because I didn't catch on, it worked.
The crow's claws twitched as his voice choked up with grief.
That means... That's when we heard gunshots. I'll never forget it. My supervisor tells me not to go in there, but I just have this sinking feeling in my chest. And I know why. Once I hear the more gunshots, then Once I hear more gunshots, then there are adults. The hostage takers have killed the kids, and then themselves.
My God, that's awful. My mind was reeling, but this despondent tone had the ring of sincerity. I could see the haunted, vacant look in his pupils, just like when I slipped back to Caber's death. When you said you can't talk about it, you mean?
I mean that I don't want to, because it drives me mad. It hurts. The worst part is, when I get in there, one kid is still alive, shot in the throat. Fluffy white fur, just oozing violet blood. I have some medical training. Everyone on the hostage negotiation team. Everyone on the hostage negotiation team does. I stick my claws into the little guy's throat and try to pinch the arteries shut while we wait for paramedics. I try to push the blood back inside while he breathes. Breathe. I try to push the blood back inside while his breaths get weaker. There is so much.
Not knowing what I could possibly say, I pressed a hand against his shoulder to comfort him. How could anyone do that to their own kids, and for what? To make me look like... How could anyone do that to...
How could anyone do that to their own kids? And for what? To make me look like a monster? I just wish... I would try anything to save him, but the fragile thing dies right as the medics arrive. My claws in his throat. I feel the way the pulse stops beating against my claws as the blood keeps coating them. I can see the way the medics look at me when I pull them out and hold them in front of my face. All the dead bodies around me, wondering if I could stop it.
Grass spewed. My eyebrows slanted downwards. That's not fair to yourself. What I did was reckless, endangering my people. You didn't know what these extremists were going to do. I can see it now.
No, of course not. I had nightmares about it all. Became this irritable mess that everyone had to steer clear of. I couldn't predict what I'd react poorly to. When I began to lash out at Lekka, my light, just because she was a child, I was a danger to her. My wife was right to leave me. The Jaslips say I'm a monster. The Krebs think I'm a hero. You can decide what you believe, Taylor.
I believe you did the best you could. That's more than I can say for myself. You needed
help, not abandonment. I, as a I of anyone get PTSD, and if Quanta triggers it, I understand. I shouldn't have blamed you for how you reacted. I won't cut her off, but you don't have to interact with her. Gress nodded. I can't crumple every time I see a Jaslip from the Enclave. I doubt Quana would tolerate me. She won't care about the truth.
We can tell her what really happened. Either way, I'm here for you. I'm going to be a better friend. I'm going to be a better friend, and like you told me when I took off my mask, I'm glad that you opened up to me.
His eyes perked up for a moment. A hug?
Just this once. Don't get used to it.
I winced as the Krev threw his arms around me, applying pressure right where Mofani had kicked me. Knowing his side of the story, everything about his life crumbling was all the more tragic in hindsight. Gress was tormented because of Jaslips who Gress was tormented because of Jaslips who orchestrated the murder of kids to look like it was his choice. For what it was worth, I thought good people like Quana needed to hear the truth. My best friend deserved better than that slander. He'd suffered more than enough already. End of chapter.
Oops, doops. Up dooty doot. It's understandable. You don't want to see. You don't want to spread the worst of humanity to people who don't need it. I hope my microphone isn't starting to go. But the months I've had, it probably is. It could be the cable, I suppose. Crickety crack, crickety crack. Put my phone on charge. Alrighty, on to Retipos 267-1. The Sapient Logic Bomb. Sapient Logic. Boom. Alright. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Retipos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. I don't know why Stream Elements is deleting everything. I shall turn it off. Need to... Messages. Stream Elements is just being stupid. Where I take old stories...
where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Sapient Logic Bomb, written by Dolduck. Oh, excuse me. I remember when the humans first met the United Council of Species. I am more than 4,000 years old, and have spent the last 1,250 of those serving as a council member for my species, the Yitri. About 800 years ago, the Benthian explorer bumped into one of their systems. Benthians endure the long months of deep space FTL travel well, and are still employed as explorers by the UCS today. But anyway, we make first contact, and after some negotiations, they agreed to send a delegation to the UCS in exchange for one of ours. It was the usual diplomatic mission with security and a collection of scientists to help make sense of the culture package. It really helps having an actual species there when distilling the entire history and technological progress of a star-spanning culture into a format the Council can easily digest. It also helps us quickly identify possible avenues of trade and mutual development. And it helps us identify threats to the continued existence of galactic civilization. Yeah. Good morning, Red West. Let me see if I can try. Because it's not deleting all of James's messages, is it? There bots. Chatbot. Settings? No. Banned words? No. Spam filters? No. Okay. I think that's it. I have no idea. There's a new setting that they've added. So if one person keeps talking, it starts deleting. On my side, it's saying that Stream Elements is deleting them. So. We'll see if that helps. I just change a setting, which I think is relevant to the continued existence of galactic civilization. So they arrived here in Core. The diplomats go to the council complex, and the scientists go to the Silkic labs. It used to be located about 300 kilometers west of the council complex, on the outskirts of the capital. Yeah, I think so. Because he's doing multiple messages. Maybe. I don't know. Apparently there was a new setting that's been launched, so it could be something that's just false positiving. False triggering? Whatever it is. I was part of the team that met with the diplomats. The first 10 days went well. There didn't seem to be anything that unusual about them, apart from the fact that they were bipedal and didn't have a tail. But they seemed to be a reasonable species. They had expanded in a rough sphere around their homeworld. I think it was about 400 light years in diameter in those days. They were a collection of different demographics. Democracies, not demographics. They were a collection of different democracies gathered under a unified body. Their navy was oversized, but nothing worryingly so. The initial reports from Silkic Labs were all very optimistic. The humans were clever, had rich history, rapid progress, all good things. During lunch on the 11th day, we were informed that Cyclic Labs had initiated a full quarantine. Full lockdown, all lines cut, full jamming of wireless signals, no access in or out. I don't really remember what happened until a couple hours later, when the jamming suddenly died out and a single file and a single file was sent out. We tried calling them, but none of our calls were answered. Cyclic Labs went silent. Cyclic Labs were silent. The file turned out to be a compressed sound clip. The contents, though, they were disturbing to say the least. I'll even play it for you here. The humans are immune. Don't say it. Don't say it. It was one of them that set off the quarantine. You can't come in here. Don't say it. It'll infect you. The humans are immune. But they killed all of them. No, don't say it. I don't have long. I think I'm the last. No one else. Don't say it. It's just 6 words. But if you hear them or read them, that's it. They killed each other. Don't come in here. It's too dangerous. Don't say it. Grunkle tore a hole in my thorax, but he got him. Minutes left now. Good. I know the words. No one should know them. He was the last. Grunkle, no. I the last. No, don't say it. Don't come in here. Now turn off the jamming and send us. Don't say it. Goodbye. We played it for the humans. They seemed very worried, and understandably so. Some sort of event or infection had hit Cyclic. Some sort of event or infection had hit Cyclic Labs, and the only information we had suggested that everyone inside was dead, and that we humans were immune to whatever it was. It did not look good for them, and we were growing suspicious. When the rhetoric started getting increasingly belligerent, the humans persuaded us to let their security detachment enter the labs, since they would reportedly be immune. It also left their ambassadors in our hands, so it was seen as a reasonable compromise. Their security people were called Marines, and we watched the feeds from their helmets as they entered Cyclic Labs. It was appalling. The researchers and other employees at the labs had torn each other apart, using either the natural weapons or whatever they could improvise that they had turned using either the natural weapons or whatever they could improvise that had turned the place into using their natural weapons or whatever they could improvise, they had turned the place into a slaughterhouse. Torn and rendered bodies were everywhere, blood and viscera on the walls and ceiling, the color of many different species, making it a hellish rainbow. Many of them had obviously done this to themselves. We all sat stunned. Cyclic Labs was dead. The Marines continued searching. They found the humans in pieces and had to resort to counting actual heads. They found 3 of them outside the control room. It looked like they'd be defending it and doing a good job until they were overwhelmed by when you look at the amount of bodies the Cyclic Labs colors. Inside the control room was a Fennec administrator who had sent the message, bled out from a ragged hole in his side. His left lower foreleg was ripped off. He had punched it through the ocular cavity and into the brain of a large furry Reman who lay dead at the control room floor. Fennec, blood on his claws. Fennec blood on his claws. Fennec blood on its claws. Still, we had no indication of what had caused this. No explanation other than everybody going homicidally insane. Then one of the Marines panned over a wall. It was covered in writing. Luckily, not many species take the time to learn each other's written languages. it's much easier to rely on audio translators, and this was in Urarish. I remember looking expectantly at my Urarish team member. He blinked rapidly and started to twitch. He started mumbling to himself, and I remember asking him what he was saying when he suddenly started screaming, "No!" He got up and started running. He then hurled himself forward and impaled himself on a jagged Urxian sculpture that was in the room. All the footage was erased. The rest is hazy. 800 years is a long time. We quarantined their species. We had to. It was apparently just a simple question, 6 words long, one which their strange minds could somehow withstand. They gave birth to it, after all, but which drove all other sapient minds irrevocably mad. Every human being was a potential weapon of mass destruction. To invite them to our worlds would be suicidal. So we quarantined them, and they agreed with it. It was sad, a vibrant species forever cut off from the rest of the galactic society. We maintain a single line of heavily filtered communication with them. They update us on their territories, and we update them on ours. Our relationship is not warm, but it exists. 387 years ago, we met you, the Liponese. You have never let us in doubt as to your imperial aspirations, but we let you into the UCS so you had full access to our archives for well over 380 of those years. You knew that was a human planet you invaded. The humans reported your actions to us, and we imposed sanctions on you. Then, you launched a massive invasion on human territory. We saw the atrocities you committed, again, through our channel to the humans. Now, Ambassador, to the reason I called you. We received this from the humans 10 minutes ago, and I suspect it explains why you've been unable to contact your government. It reads, at 0300 UTC, human stealth ship successfully shut down all communications buoys leading into Nipponese space and deployed the sapient logic bomb. No leaks detected from Nipponese space. We will continue containment procedures for the time being. We'll keep you advised. Two weeks later, one of the last Nipponese alive finally succumbed to his madness. He drew his last breath in front of the wall that circled his home. His hands were a ruined mess of blood and flesh. The price of a frantic message scrawled on the wall, thousands of times. The same question, is a hot dog a sandwich? 2 kilometers away, the first human settlers landed. End of story.
Fair enough. I think the banality of the question is the point. Do penguins have knees? If it's called a moon on Earth when you drop your pants and show your cheeks, is it called an Earth on Moon when you do the same? Two 6-5, 3-6-5. Two 6-7. Good night, Postmatic. Thank you for popping past. Very much appreciated. And good afternoon, Phoenix Paul. Welcome, welcome.
Story number 2 of Monsters and Men, written by Buckinator 137-HFY. The only thing scarier than a monster. Humans are weak. They are short-lived. They are dumb and without any natural grace. They lack claw and fang, scales, or carapace. Their skin is soft, their bones breakable. We've all heard these things, and 100 variations, and for the most part, they're true. But they don't take anything other than their weaknesses into account. Yet they terrify me, because I have seen those men and women that could raise kingdoms, and Boomer Juice fighting back, and storm and end bloodlines. When a neighboring village had a problem with a ghoul infestation, desecrating corpses and making new ones, they sent word to the Hunters Guild. The guild sent 5 to face down a crypt's worth of ghouls, 5 men and women, more bronze cogs and steel plates. 5 men and women, more gong bear to burr. 5 men and women, more gong burr. Oh, that's awesome, Redbacks. 5 men and women, more bronze cogs and steel plates than flesh, walked into the crypt, and 3 walked out carrying their fallen. They arrived and left without a word. The job was done, and that was that. The village elders sent the payment, and the deal was completed. When the city guard were being harassed by lichens, in the wood, they went to the guild for help. They sent their contingent of human hunters armed with blunderbusses and blades of silver-red steel. A week later, the attacks had halted, and the half of the hunters still alive took their dead home. Even the dwarves, masters of their minds, called upon the guild to rid their minds of the fell beasts and supernatural spectres that had taken residence in the ore-rich tunnels. Most surprising of all was when the High Elven King himself went to the guild for help. A being once so proud had come to mere weak humans for help when a rift into the abyss had opened and flooded his once oh-so-pristine lands with horrors of other worlds. They pushed the foul beasts back to the abyss from whence they came, leaving a trail of bodies in their wakes. Monstrosities and hunters alike littered the lands. Greetings, David. Oh, Dave. Hope you're doing well. Answer me this, though, man. Answer me this, though, men. Have you ever heard of Alvan or even Dragonborn hunters, Has not one of ya heard of any non-human hunters? The guild accepts any that'll join it, but it's only ever humans that do. They're the most dangerous of us all. Sever an elf's limb, and they'll die before much can be done. Sever a hunter's limb, and they'll bolt a new one, and they'll bolt a new one of blood and steam to take its place. Break a dwarf's bones, and they'll never heal quite right. Snap a human femur in half, and they'll be running again within the year. Hex a gnome, and he'll descend into madness. Hex a man, and you only harden his resolve. I asked one of them why they did it after he and his compatriots had saved myself and my crew from a basilisk. He fixed me with his clockwork eye, shrugged, and said that he hazard pay. Shrugged, and said the hazard pay would be enough to give his kids an education with only a few more hunts. Tell anyone other than a human to hunt monsters that could rend them from limb to limb for money, and they'd look at you as though you were insane. But humans are a different beast from the lot of us. If I didn't know better, I'd swear they had monster blood in them all as well. Is the monster that you send to kill it. End of story. Alrighty, that's that one done. And
So happy that Restream has spammed the message that we've reached 100 chats. Indeed, indeed. Phoenix Paul. John Wick kills the Baba Yaga. I love the fact that the movie just got the name completely wrong. It's quite funny. Anyway, let's move on to the next story, shall we? I have no idea. Probably cultivated grass. We're doing 2793. 2793 dash. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called This particular story is called When the Galactic War Fleet Invaded Earth, Earth Had Just Disappeared, written by Deathclaw Tamer. Volox slumped into a command chair, her eyes sullen and directed at the floor. She scratched her green scaly forehead, which had just changed hue to the color yellow, a telltale sign of her species. A telltale sign of her species that Jobin had when confused. Did we exit the FTL at the wrong location? Barked Volox to her navigation officer. No, ma'am, we're in the correct system. All other planets in the system are accounted for apart from Earth, its moon, and a moon of the planet Jupiter. Then what in Barnard's name has happened? Volox jumped off her chair and walked up to the viewport. A dark void lay in front of her. Nothing but space where a planet of 11 billion humans should be. Yes. Ma'am, we're getting a message, audio and video, coming from, well, Earth. 300 cycles ago, Vulux's grandfather, Commander Cardon, was the first to encounter the humans. A war fleet of 200 Cygor-class planet destroyers were on the way to the Juna home world to end a 1,000 cycle conflict before the Juna and the Galactic Council. As final preparations for the jump into Juna were being calculated, a tiny ship flashed out of FTL. The ship would have only had space for a crew of 10, but only 3 humans were on board. Hello, hello, a voice was heard on the communications panel. A picture of 3 figures appeared. They looked like they were skinned Juna. Their pink flesh was exposed and their purple fur ripped off. Sorry to jump in on you like this. Dad, enough. Sorry to jump in on you like this. Dad, enough with the puns. Sorry, Sally. Dad just needed to let these people know why they are here. Dad just needed...
Dad just needs to let these people know why we are here, and we will be on our way. Sorry about that. My name is Harley Bishop. I am a human from Earth. With me is my wife Samantha and our daughter Sally. We were here just having a leisurely drive around space when I slipped on your navigation console and changed course. We were here. There's a couple factors. So once every couple months, I go look at the most popular stories, and I get a hold of the authors and say, hey, can I narrate all of your stories? Just whatever. And then once I get approval, it depends on length of the story, how it fits into my schedule, and popularity of the story on the subreddit as well. More popular stories get higher priority. We've got to play the game. And then generally between 15 and 20 minutes at this point in length of reading, and then I'll probably do the story. So I've currently got a list of all the authors that have given their approval. And then every time I'm updating my schedule, I just go through the list and see what stories they've published. Published, and then just pick out of those. I hope that makes sense. And our daughter Sally. We were just having a leisurely drive around space when I slipped on your navigation console and changed course. Sally me jumped right in front of you. Sorry about that. Anyway, we'll just turn around and head home. Have a nice spot of tea, and you can care about... Have a nice spot of tea, and you can go about your business. Anyway, nice talking with you. Have a great day. Cardin was confused. Not only was there a ship with creatures he had never seen before, but they spoke Galactic Standard. The translation module never lit up. For a second, Cardin just stood there in silence, trying to process what he'd just seen. Then Cardin remembered what he was about to do. He was about to end the longest war in galactic history. No one knew the fleet's position, only the head of the Galactic Council and the chair of the 3-member species. Dumbfoundedness quickly turned into panic as he thought this might be a scout ship for the Juna in preparations for a counterattack on their position. Why were they masking themselves with these weird figures? Just to confuse us, thought Cardin. Cardin ordered his weapons specialist to fire one 0-point round at the ship. A 0-point round from their Mac cannon would leave debris from cartridge. A 0-point round from their Mac cannon would leave debris. The cartridge was half the size of the ship, around 50 meters in size, enough to analyze the wreckage and figure out the origin of the ship. Regardless of if it was a scout or not, they could not know the location of the fleet. 0 point away, the weapons specialist replied. Direct hit, he paused. I think. What do you mean you think? Cardin questioned, walking over to the tactical display. Well, the 0 point registered an impact, but there is no wreckage. The cartridge would have blown a hole clean through the ship of that size. Even with the state-of-the-art shield, it would have... Even with the state-of-the-art shield, it would have not have enough... Even with the state-of-the-art shield, it would not have enough energy to stop the round. It's like it just disappeared on impact. This makes no sense. I'll contact the council immediately to inform them of the situation. Cardin calmly walked into the meeting room adjacent to the bridge, his calm demeanor masking his frustration at what had occurred. 10 minutes later, he walked out of the room, his face same as it had entered. The council has noted the incident. I have transferred all data to them, and they will review. For now, we go ahead as planned. How long until the jump, Classman Hajar? 12 minutes, 15 seconds, sir. Ready all ships to combat protocols and all hands to battle stations. Over the next 300 years, humans seem to appear in more areas of Council space. 300 years after first contact, a human ship jumped into a restricted space of Council home world. journey's end. When fighters and frigates scrambled to intercept the ship, a large angular structure with 2 cylindrical towers protruding from the top, a message was broadcast on all channels. "Sorry to barge in on you like this," a man in dark clothing with a white circular hat said. "One of our guests was taking a tour of the bridge and drunkenly decided to plot a course here, as he heard that the planet had the best hot sauce around. We'll be turning back and following our planned route. Apologies for the inconvenience." No ship was able to use FTL in the system. A protective barrier placed around the system and immigration entry points, heavily fortified, were the only accessible entrances. Yet this human ship was able to bypass them completely and jump within a few thousand miles of the Galactic Council's home world. As the fighters were getting into firing range, the massive human ship looked sluggish as it was turning. Over the communication channels, a large horn sound rang in each pilot's ears, not deafening, but it sounded like a large creature howling into the night. "We are writing. We are within firing range," the lead fighter communicated with the council. "Fire at will," her breath commanded. 30 fighters unleashed their quantum missiles at the bulky ship, all on course for direct hits. Yet it could be hard to miss such a massive target. It would be hard to miss such a massive target. Impact in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, impact! A massive flash of white light shone through the system, temporarily giving a sun-like light to the dark side of the planet. "Update," Hobrath ordered. "I do not understand. All 150 missiles confirmed impact, but the ship seems to have just disappeared." "Impossible. A ship that size would leave some sort of wreckage. Scan the system." "Scan complete. I'm registering an FTL jump right before impact." "Then what did the missiles hit?" Hobrath's calm demeanor was now nowhere to be seen. A hue of red covered his whole body, a sign of frustration. I don't know, sir." "I do not know, sir. Heading back to base for debrief," the lead fighter said, bewilderment evident in his voice. Hobrath was back into his chair, took a deep breath, his red scales slowly turning back to green. He grabbed his datapad. His aide, a young Joban female, stood ready to record his message. "Ready, Father. This message is to all council members. Emergency session to take place tomorrow to discuss the ongoing issue with the species known as humans." The council chamber, grand and imposing, buzzed with tension as representatives from the various species converged. Hobrath recounted the mysterious disappearance of the human ship, the recent developments, and their potential threat. "We cannot ignore this," Hobrath declared. "For years, the humans had developed a knack for appearing at the most inconvenient times, disrupting the meticulously planned campaigns of the Council. Their complete brazenness and meticulous timing have sabotaged pivotal moments in Council's ongoing plan for control of the galaxy. At first, their intervention seemed random, but as time went on, it's clear that the humans could predict the Council's moves before we have even made a decisive action. All 3 Council member species have been affected. The Joban's war fleets have been intercepted. The Joban's war fleets have been intercepted when their locations have been top secret. The Xanthan Trading Commission had their cargo vanish from their hulls. A large creature stood up, feather limbs raised up in the air in frustration, and the beak barked up and down as the translator voiced the words into galactic standard. "We had a shipment of rare species of animal, 3 Fron, the last of their kind from a world we use as a Carillium refinery. Their meat is so delicious, as they are the only 3 left. A wealthy individual was willing to pay 5 billion credits for the exclusivity. A human ship appeared with a sign in galactic standard that said, 'Learner driver.' They apologized for taking the wrong turn and then jumped back into FTL. It was not until we got to the destination we found the Fron had gone. Thank you, esteemed Council Member Buak, and the UTIP. Your efforts in mining the technology development have taken a blow. For example, When the Jobin's Third Fleet were preparing for a mining and subjugation mission of the Cloy system for the Utop, a ship appeared in front of the Champion of Liberty dreadnought and claimed that they had been trying to reach them about their ship's extended warranty. Every time we tried to destroy one of their ships, they disappeared right on impact with no clue as to where they went. When we arrived in the Cloy system, all the indigenous life on Cloy were all gone. When we arrived in the Cloy system, all the indigenous life in Cloy 3 were gone. Their pre-industrial civilization disappeared from their planet. We managed to collect the beryllium, but we lost on millions of laborers for the beryllium refining plants. We've counted so far 132 separate incidents over the last 300 cycles where humans have intervened in critical junctures. At first, it was amusing. They did not fully interfere with our plans, but over the last 50 cycles, they are appearing more frequently, and they are actively trying to hinder the Council's ability to rule and dominate the galaxy. We need to find out where these humans call home and put an end to their nuisance. The Council Hall murmured for a moment before the vote was counted. All 412 world leaders approved action. Determined to uncover the whereabouts of Earth, the Council launched thousands of reconnaissance ships into the depths of the galaxy. These vessels were equipped with the latest scanning technology and cloaking devices, designed to evade detection as they scoured across countless star systems. The search was relentless and methodical. The search was relentless and methodical, driven by a collective resolve to put an end to the humans' interference once and for all. For 2 cycles, the recon fleet traversed the galaxy. The Council members grew increasingly impatient, their frustrations mounting with each passing cycle without concrete results. Finally, a recon ship detected an unusual energy signature emanating from a distant sector. Cross-referencing data with the Council's archives, they matched the FTL signatures to that of Earth ships, and it became clear. They had found Earth. The recon ship jumped into the system after scanning all the planets in the system. A blue-green planet showed signs of life, and signals were emanating from the surface. When locking onto a signal, a video appeared on the screen. A camera in a home or shop with 6 humans sitting and talking, holding beverage containers with what they called coffee. The Council had finally found the human homeworld. Once the message got back to the Council, a massive war fleet was assembled, bristling with the most advanced weaponry and formidable ships from across the galaxy. Their destination, Earth. The Earth solar system. Volux, there you are. Volux, there you are. I hope you're keeping well, and congratulations on becoming commander of the war fleet. Your grandfather would be so proud. Thank you, High Counselor Hobrath. It's an honor to be able to finally put an end to the vermin humans. Your grandfather was the first to encounter the humans. Your grandfather was the first to encounter the humans. Now you will be the last one to see them alive. Reports from our recon ships confirm that the planets they call home, Earth, has no defense. The only ships in the system are civilian and commercial. So go and claim victory for the Galactic Council. Ma'am, we're getting a message, audio and video, coming from, well, Earth. Bolak snapped back to reality. High Council Hobrath would be expecting her to communicate total victory soon, and reliving her word. And reliving her word to him only enhanced the anger and confusion. On screen, Bolak shouted, let's see what the hell is going on here. Greetings, esteemed council members, the message began, the voice dripping with mockery. A human woman dressed in white suit spoke, a frond sitting upon her lap, asleep, while the woman stroked it. We regret to inform you that Earth is currently unavailable. We have decided to relocate the Earth to the Andromeda Galaxy and have a home-warming party with the Juna. A video appeared of the Juna home world, a planet that the Council thought they had destroyed over 300 cycles ago. The video zooms in to show the Juna people alive and well, enjoying a brown beverage with white foam on top. Then Then of a planet of Cloy 3. Shots taken from high orbit showing the species that the planet... Shots taken from high orbit showing the species of their planet just living their lives in huts and farming the land. Sorry about the smoke and mirrors. We swapped the Juno homeworld with a fake. Buildings and everything and 15 billion little bots that made you think that there was life signs on the planet. They were a peaceful species until the Council decided that they wanted the beryllium-rich planets and moons in the system. Glassing the planet from orbit was your mistake. If you would have just gone down to the planet, our whole charade would have been found out. Nice distraction we had for you, though. Nice distraction we had for you, though. Granddad said he laughed for days when he saw the confusion on your commander's face. Oh, and do not come looking for us. You will not be able to find us anyway. Not sure your council is capable of moving planets to other galaxies yet, are they? I mean, if you continue, we would be happy to send more booze cruisers to Journey's End. Humans have outgrown all petty conflicts and wars. We are far, far more advanced than any of you realized, and if our enlightenment, we chose a place. In our enlightenment, we chose peace and quiet. And in our enlightenment, we chose peace and quiet. A nice Merlot and a good time with friends and family. I implore you to consider it. You have far more time to enjoy the little things in life and a lot less, well, death. And a word of warning to the Council and its members. If the Council try to invade, subjugate, or blockade any other species in the Milky Way, you'll just have to bring them over to us and show them a good time. Anyways, this is Admiral Samantha Bishop signing off on behalf of the humans and Juno of the Andromeda Galaxy. The message ended with an image of a dazzling party. Humans and Juno raising their glasses in toast. Hundreds of Fron cuddling up to humans and Juno before the hologram dissipated into the void. End of story. End of story. Alrighty. I think that's going to be me for the day. Ooh. That was 15,000 words. 2.5 hours of stream. Some chit-chat, some chin-wagging, some lollygagging, if you will. But the voice is tired. The voice wants to go sleep now. And who am I to argue with the voice? Thank you all for spending your time with me. It's very much appreciated, especially in this modern era where your attention is pulled in every which way, and your attention is a currency. I do appreciate you spending your time with me. It means a lot. And I hope you all have a fantastic time, whatever it may be for you. Day, night, Australia, moon, whatever the time is for you. I hope you all have a good one. And I will be back tomorrow, same time, same